there. Hi there. Ho there. It's Angela. Hello. I just want to make sure the sound is working properly. I just realized. Hang on a second. Oh, yeah. Our microphone's working spot on, right? Hello and welcome to another midweek with meaning. Today, the topic is about trust, and I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you. Thanks for letting me know the sound is good. Right on. So as you're coming on, please say hi. If you're watching live, feel free to pop anything into the chat. I'm happy to answer questions as we go along or hear your comments. And if you're watching replay, please put replay in the comments. And I'm Angela Ward. I'm a registered nurse, a soul midwife, and I help people journey within, return renewed through my business Guardian at the Gateway. And I do the show every week. And I love it because it's a chance for me to kind of dive more deeply into different topics that I hope are helpful to you too. So this one's been coming up for me a lot, as well as with some of my clients and also just in my periphery around the idea of trust. Trust. So I'm going to talk about trust today in two different ways. I'm going to talk about trust with other and trust with self. And first of all, my favorite thing is to understand kind of the root of the word and what it really means, to see if the root meaning sheds any insight on our interpretations of these words or gives us a different perspective or things that perhaps we've forgotten about these words. So this is an interesting one. When I look this one up, it's as early as the 1200s. And it's pretty old. It comes from a long root of Norse and Proto-Germanic language as well as Dutch. The old root of it means to be firm, solid, and steadfast, which I think is pretty wonderful. It also means the reliance on the veracity, integrity, or other virtues of someone or something. Help, confidence, protection, and support. I think those four are really popping out for me. That's an old Norse meaning. That means help, confidence, protection, and support. An old Frisian and Dutch root. It means comfort and consolation. And it also means reliability, fidelity, and faithfulness, as well as confident expectation and that on which one relies. So I think these are really fascinating, right? It's a noun and a verb. So trust is really an action, I find, much more so than a solid noun. I find trust is something that I can develop and experience. So I think jumping off from that point of the root meaning comfort, consolation, help, confidence, protection, support, I also find to me that trust has a flavor of authenticity and integrity, right? So if I'm thinking about wanting to trust another person, I find them to be more trustworthy if they are being really authentic about who they are, if I don't get a sense that they're hiding something. And also, I'm more trusting of someone who stands in integrity. That can be a little tricky to discern at first, but this makes a lot of sense when we start talking about self-trust and being in integrity. We'll come back to that. I also believe there's a component related to compassion and empathy, which I think relates to this root word of comfort and consolation, to console. Like there's that feeling of relatedness, of being seen and seeing in a place of trust. Yeah. And then one essential component that I think I don't really hear in the root of the word, but to me feels really important, is around the idea of communication, or the ability to, and maybe this is more related to, authenticity and integrity, but an ability to be clear about what they're saying to me and what I'm saying to them. I hope that might resonate with you. Are there some components that are missing from your list around trust? So be really clear that I'm not tangling trust and safety here, although I personally believe that when I trust somebody, I tend to feel safer around them. I don't trust somebody because I feel safe. I feel safe because I trust somebody, if that makes sense. Because really the opposite is true. If I don't trust somebody, I don't feel safe around them. Can I get an amen? Does anyone have that experience, right? So let's talk a little bit more about self-trust. This is a really essential component for us to be able to build in order to develop trust with others. If we cannot find self-trust, how can we be trustworthy or worthy of trust of others? Sorry, I shouldn't use the word worthy, because you're all worthy of connection and community and relationship and love. And those aren't things that you have to earn. But if I want to have someone trust me, I need to be able to show up authentically and in integrity. So this is an important piece of my self-trust. I can show up authentic, like I'm feeling a certain way, so I'm going to act however I want. That might not actually be a very trusting place to be. Let's say that I'm authentically feeling a lot of rage right now and I'm yelling and I'm going to take it out on you and act like an asshole. Like, that may be an authentic piece, but I think it also has to be balanced with this piece of integrity and compassion, because part of my personal core values and code of ethics is that I want to be kind. My intention is to be a loving kindness with people that I meet, as to the degree and depth that I can. So if I'm being authentic, but it's a lot of alignment with my values around kindness, for example, it means that I am out of integrity. Does that make sense? The other place that this shows up is in relationship to trusting myself, to be a person of my word and a person of action that I agree to. So, for example, this is where it gets really tricky, because I think a lot of us are maybe people pleasers, or we're really good at this interpersonal relationship. A lot of people, we're social creatures and we've had to be able to do this to do well in the world. But when it comes to ourselves, sometimes we can't trust ourselves. And why can't we trust ourselves? Because we're not being authentic, which to me means really being accepting and clear about who we are and our motivations, as well as we are out of integrity with ourselves. We have no compassion for ourselves, and we tell secrets or lies to ourselves. Does that make sense? Does anyone get a feel for that? Because this one I find is so interesting. If I am telling myself a story, one of my great ways that I don't trust myself is when I make a commitment to do something for myself and then I don't do it. Like, let's say I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to walk the dogs, or I'm going to clean my room, or whatever, the thing like that. And I've even made a plan, then I'm going to do it. And then the time comes and I just don't do it. So there is a mental juggle that happens around justifying why I'm making the choice that I'm making, which I personally think is an improvement, because there are plenty of times that I just kind of used to let it just kind of slip by in this forgetful place. Now I'm more in this trying to communicate with myself around the choices that I'm making. And then I can also move into this place of lack of compassion. So I'm making the choice. I'm then beating myself up for the choice that I'm making, not following through on my word. And then I'm out of integrity. And then I don't trust myself to do what I say I'm going to do. So some of the ways we can start to rebuild personal trust with ourselves is to honor our commitments to ourselves. And they have to come from a place of integrity and a place from your values. So if you know, and if I know that spending some time every day straightening my space helps me feel mentally clear and kind of quiets that chatter, it's so loving and kind to actually do that, even if it feels really hard. If I make an agreement to do a little thing and I do it every single time you do this, every time I do it, it builds greater trust with myself. I was just watching a little clip of a video that James Clear posted. James Clear wrote Atomic Habits, which I think is a really great book. And he talks about, I think, the 2-minute rule, where when you're building a habit, sometimes you just do the thing that takes 2 minutes. So let's say I used an example of someone who wanted to go to the gym that he was working with. And so the 2-minute rule was essentially this person would put on their tennis shoes and then drive to the gym and then drive home. And they did it for like 6 weeks. And they didn't actually go in the gym and work out. But what they did was they developed the habit, of being someone who goes to the gym. And by these little incremental steps, it's building trust that we're going to follow through with what we say we're going to do. The other component around this is if we're developing self-trust, and let's say you have a laundry list of things that you'd like to do that, maybe make you feel better. And if you don't do these things, you're out of integrity. It can feel super overwhelming, right? You can be like, this is a mountain that I can't even deal with. So I'm going to put my head under the blankets and just go back to sleep, which doesn't really help. So if we can build these little tiny wins in, trust can be redeveloped and grown over time. And this really helps, really helps. Give me a little information, like a little thumbs up or something, if this is resonating with you, if this is landing, or if you have any questions about developing a sense of self-trust. I know something I'd like to add here. There ain't no shame in this game. What can happen a lot of times is we fall out of trust, or we don't follow through with our word, and we lose that compassion and empathy piece. And we move straight into this place of shame, like, oh, fuck. I said I was going to do this thing and I didn't do it, and I'm not doing it. So bringing in a little bit of empathy and compassion and curiosity is so much more helpful in approaching developing a sense of trust. Trust is a very, like high vibration feeling, right? But shame and fear and all these things are so much lower. And in another episode, I'll talk more about the vibration of energy because it's a thing. But when we get into this shame place, we can't be creative. When we get into fear, we can't be creative. When we get into blame, we can't be creative. When we're moving into compassion and we're moving into understanding, we're bringing in curiosity, it's so much easier to start building in trust. So for those of you that haven't ever joined my Create Your Day, we haven't talked about the Create Your Day journaling challenge. This is one thing that we do that I learned from my coach, Adele Tevlin, that we need to forgive ourselves daily for things that we wanted to try yesterday and we didn't achieve. This helps to restore trust, right? So think about, this is interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to put this on the screen for a second. Ellie just shared, I noticed my breathing got more shallow while listening to this. That's very interesting. So to me, that can mean two things. Sometimes my breathing gets a little shallow when I'm like perched on the edge of my seat, like, ooh, I'm all ears and I don't want to disturb it. That's one energy that can come through for me when my breathing gets shallow. But another place where my breathing could get shallow when hearing something like this could be around kind of treading on sacred ground, meaning we're touching close to home about this topic. And maybe it's around this piece of trust for you. So if everyone is with me right now, whether you're watching live or a replay, let's take a moment to tune into our breath, okay? Reminding yourself that you are worthy of trust, that you can trust yourself. You can learn to strengthen this relationship. And one of the ways we can do this is to stay really grounded in ourselves. That's where that sense of integrity comes from. I was talking with my husband this weekend and some other lovely folks, and we talked about this energy of this vertical energy, which I feel like integrity is, because it's really standing in your own truth, right? So let's bring breath into that and kind of get solid in that integrity place and bring in compassion. Thank you for that little pause. I think it's really important to take those pauses as we talk. So yes, we can develop and grow this sense of self-trust, and it's essential. Now, if you're not certain how to trust yourself and you have another trustworthy person in your life, this is really lovely to be in relationship with them, because especially if we can get in face-to-face interpersonal relationships with someone you know is authentic in their integrity, has compassion, is a comfort or a consolation, is a help for you, feels protective or supportive, maybe has some confidence. We have these amazing things called mirror neurons that allow us to look at another and kind of try their brain on, try their nervous system on. We can kind of overlay it over ourselves. So if you can be in the presence of someone that you trust, you can practice feeling what trust feels like. You can practice grounding. You can practice coming into resonance with that person and kind of go back and forth with seeing what that feels like. So you can learn what the feeling of trust feels like for you and how you might do that in real life for yourself. So the other piece where I talked about communication, about telling yourself truths, but also speaking from truth to other. This can be a little activating too, right? When we think about needing to communicate from a place that we can trust, like, for example, I'm a nurse. And as you probably know, nurses, not saying me necessarily, but all nurses as a profession are considered one of the most trustworthy professions in our country, which is a real honor to be able to carry that perspective. So what do I want to say about that? Sometimes as nurses, we have to tell the truth in ways that are not easy, right? They're not necessarily, there might be hard things to hear, right? Or there's a number of other people in the world that maybe in your circle or sphere that may tell you truths that are difficult to hear. But if there are people that you trust and they've worked on their communication piece, that they're able to come from that place of empathy and compassion and love in their communication, it can allow us to receive that. Or if we're the one communicating as a trustworthy person from a place of love and groundedness, it can help clear the channels of communication, even if what we're communicating may be difficult to hear or to share or to understand. So this week, as we dive more into trust, I would love for you to maybe write in your journal or make a little list of who do you trust and why do you trust them? This can be every direction from like my dogs, I trust my dogs, to I don't know, political figures. Probably there aren't that many of them. I trust Bernie Sanders a lot, I think. Like I feel like he's got my back, but I don't know. Feel free to make a list of this trust. And then I'd also like you to spend a little time examining how you trust yourself and how you might grow and develop that sense of trust within you. Remember tapping back into breath and groundedness as you explore this. This will help a lot. So that's what I got to say about that. If there's any questions, please pop them in the comments or, leave a comment if you'd like or a question, and I'll do my best to respond. But of course, it is really fun to add a little oracle card at the end here to see if we get a nice lens to look through this week over trust. So last week we had this lovely fortitude card. So thank you, fortitude card. We're going to add back to the pile and see what's next. So again, we're using the Sacred Earth Oracle. Thank you for gifting this, my friend. And I would like to see, we'll stick fortitude back in there. Whoop. I'd really love these cards to give us a way to have a greater understanding of trust for ourselves and for our other. Also, I want to say that I think this is really important for us to be beacons of trustworthiness in the world. The world is very rocky, maybe you've noticed. And I think that we can be the ones who bring trust. The more we practice this, the more we become people of integrity in our word and loving communication, compassion, empathy, even with those people that are challenging for you. With boundaries, that can be another episode maybe. But how might you be a comfort, a consolation, protection? How might you be really authentically you and in a deep integrity? So, little Sacred Earth Oracle, who would like to come out and give us a little piece of the pie today? It's going to be, ooh, I've never gotten this card before. Okay. One moment here. The card that we just pulled is potential. Can you see that? Is it showing up okay? There we go. Potential. This card is gorgeous. Just looking at it, it seems to have a woman. A woman with a youngster kind of contained within her robe or something. You see that? This feels like she's someone we can trust. And she's holding a stone or a flame, or I'm not really certain. She's holding something in her hand here. So where can I put this so you can see it? Let us read about potential and how it relates to our sense of trust. So, trust. Think about that. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It cannot appear from nowhere, nor can it disappear. All objects contain stored energy. This energy is measured in terms of its capacity or potential. So you have the capacity to be a beacon of trust for yourself and for others. That potential is within you. And I think trust can spread, right? Like fear, trust, and groundedness are contagious. So let's see. Coal has the capacity to create heat. A stationary rock could roll down at a certain speed for a certain distance. The energy in running water has the potential to charge batteries. The potential is there, but the stored energy may sit dormant for millennia without ever being converted or utilized. This energy is neither negative or positive, but it can be used in any number of ways. This energy is neither negative or positive, but it can be used in any number of ways. So I think this relates back to that idea of shame and fear and resistance. And all of these things are energy that are either self-directed or can be cleared, right? Or can be repurposed. So I just want to say, you can move through those things. Electricity can be used to hurt or return someone to life. There is potential in everything, in your memories, your hopes, your doubts, and your strengths. How you use them is up to you. Let's read about the earthly meaning. It says, all energy can be harnessed and used in a myriad of ways. Just as elite athletes learn to use the nervous system to better their performance, it is up to you to draw on the energy stored in a negative experience to fuel your motivation, determination, or creativity. It is up to you to draw on the energy stored in a negative experience to fuel your motivation, determination, or creativity. Yeah, that's what I was just saying, right? Like we can use the ways that maybe we've been out of trust with ourselves to fuel and kind of forge that new connection to ourselves. Use whatever life sends you to your advantage. You can always sit on the potential within you, or you can release it. It is your choice. This is not a matter of circumstance, ability, or worthiness. Convert a possibility into reality. So if you struggle with this, with trust, if you struggle with self-trust or trusting of other, you can convert that possibility into a reality of developing more trust and moving in trust. And no, I'm not saying don't be discerning. I'm not saying don't have boundaries. These are essential components. But from that integrity, grounded, safe, breathful place, we can find and move into that trust. One final piece here says, the spiritual meaning of this card says, through grace and love, we continue to transform. Yes, that is so true. Nothing we do is lost or forgotten. As we relate to our hidden potentials, we create our destiny. One day we shall become stars. Through this process, many future Earths shall be born where we can live as one in the arms of the Divine Mother. The ground you walk on, the rain that falls, is her love is stored in everything. Oh, this is really interesting. For me, when I read that, what I'm hearing is there is trust to be had in something beyond ourselves, beyond humans. There is a trust within the earth and within the experience of the seasons and the cycles. So, yeah, I'd love you to think about these things, to make your list of who you trust and why, and ways that you trust yourself or don't, and how are you in integrity or not. All right, my loves, this little baby potential is going to live on my desk until our next show next week. I invite you to contemplate that as well. Thank you so much for joining me for another Midweek with Meaning. Remember, this show is made for you, so please feel free. Feedback is always welcome. Let me know what you want to hear more about. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share, because the more you do that, the more it helps find the people that vibe with me and that need to hear stuff like this. If you're watching on any other platform, feel free to share this. If you're on LinkedIn, please like my page on Guardian at the Gateway and follow me on Instagram. all the socials. All this helps me out. So thank you, and we'll talk next week. All right. Bye, loves. Bye.